Will you dance with me, mister?
Would you like to dance with me, sir? Those 6 words cut through the noise like a knife through butter. There was a pause in the air for every glass. Everyone looked, every whisper stopped. Golden chandeliers lit up the enormous ballroom of the Ellington Hotel, but at that moment, all the light seemed to shine on her. A girl, not older than 10. Her skin was brown, her eyes were brilliant, and her black hair was in 2 lovely braids. The crimson apron fit her waist, but it was a little too big for her small frame. She was the daughter of a waitress who no one could see or remember, but tonight she was in front of a billionaire. Nolan Vexley. The name meant something. Big tech, CEO of a Fortune 500 company. A man whose choices changed whole markets. People had dubbed him cold, calculating, and hard to approach. And now, a black girl with no shoes on had just invited him to dance. The audience gasped, but not in amazement. Some people laughed. Some people laughed. "Oh, this is crazy," one woman said in a low voice. People were already raising their phones to record the shame. Keisha didn't move. Her hands shook, but she never took her eyes off of him. She didn't notice a rich person. She spotted a man standing by himself in too much light. And deep down inside that man, something broke. A thought, a loss, the sound of a daughter's laugh, which is now only a faint echo. No one realized it yet, but this moment would sear itself into history. What happened next wasn't just a dance. It was a sign of defiance. It was innocence meeting arrogance and coming out on top. This isn't a story. This is the truth, wrapped in bravery. This is a black story, the kind we tell on Hidden Worth, where hidden hearts get to shine and lost souls get to talk again. Don't scroll if you think that everyone has value, no matter what their skin color, job position, or past. Stay, hear me out. Because what happens in the following few minutes could impact the way you see people for the rest of your life. It all started with a single voice, and one question that can't be answered. Will you dance with me, sir? Keisha is her name. She was born on a Tuesday morning in early spring in a modest apartment above a laundromat on Martin Street in Savannah, Georgia. Denise, her mother, worked 2 shifts at the Ellington Hotel, pouring coffee, cleaning up, and putting on a smile for tips that barely paid the expenses. Keisha had never met her father, not even a picture. Her mom wouldn't even say her name. But Keisha was like sunshine encased in brown flesh. Her eyes shone like morning dew on Georgia grass, and her voice always sounded like it was singing, even when she was just asking for porridge. She loved wearing a yellow hoodie with the word "believe" peeling off the front. What does she like best in the world? She danced barefoot in the hallway when her mom got home, humming whatever tune was stuck in her mind from the radio at work. She didn't own any ballet shoes, or a real dancing floor, but she had a good sense of rhythm, soul, grace. Every Sunday after church, she would stand in front of the mirror and do made-up dances, pretending that there were people watching who would cheer every time she whirled. Her mom would stand at the doorway, tired but smiling, and say, "One day, baby, they will see you." But the world wasn't made for girls like Keisha. Not a world with marble floors and diamond necklaces. Not the world that told her to be quiet, be little, and get out of the way. Some kids at school labeled her the maid's daughter, like it was a joke. She never fought back. She just kept it in her chest like a knot that wouldn't come undone. She danced instead. She danced while no one else was around, and occasionally, even when they were, Keisha didn't dance to impress anyone. She felt free for the first time, as if the world couldn't touch her. Her feet moved as if color, class, and cruelty didn't matter. She understood she didn't belong in the rooms where her mom worked, but that didn't mean she didn't deserve it. So when fate put her in that big ballroom with people who couldn't see her, she did something they never thought she would. She got them to look, not with noise, not with rebellion, but she was brave like a girl who still believed in magic. The Ellington Hotel in downtown Savannah was more than just a hotel. It was a symbol. Built in 1892, it was covered in ivy and history and possessed crystal chandeliers that had seen senators, celebrities, and scandals come and go. The lobby smelled like ancient books and vanilla tobacco, which is a smell that stays with you for a long time. And tonight, it was shining. The gleaming silver and champagne flutes shone in every corner of the huge ballroom. A live jazz quartet played warm brass and delicate piano music in the air. The waiters moved like whispers, carrying trays full of caviar nibbles and strawberries sprinkled with gold. Every person who came in had to go through a velvet rope guarded by men in black suits. The names on the invite list were typed in serif font and checked 3 times. It wasn't a normal night. This was the annual Ellington Gala, a private affair when Savannah's rich and famous came to be seen, photographed, and quietly compete for who wore their wealth the best. Each year, the cause was different, like education, art, or the environment. But the hidden goal was always the same, for power to see itself in the mirror. The crowd was amazing. Women in high society wore jewels the size of nickels, and men in fitted suits drank scotch that was older than most marriages. Laughter rang out like glass bells, which sound pretty but never exactly warm. People talked about hedge funds, vacation houses in Aspen, and which candidates were worth betting on in the next election cycle. People didn't notice the workers. Not really. The ones with polished shoes and black vests. The ones who opened doors, poured beverages, and cleaned up the bites that no one completed. The guests thought they were furniture. Background. Helpful but not seen. Denise enjoyed it that way. Invisible was safe. She had worked at 23 of these parties and understood what to do. Be courteous, be quiet, and never stand out. But tonight was different. Keisha had asked to go with them for just an hour. She had said, "I'll help, I promise," and pulled on her mom's hand. Denise said yes, even though she knew it was wrong. She said, "You stay close, don't talk to anyone, and don't go near the ballroom." So Keisha stood by the kitchen door at first, her eyes wide, looking. The dresses, the chandeliers, the music, the grace. It was a world so different from hers that it might as well have been a dream. But as they say, dreams have a way of coming true, even when no one thinks they will. She didn't plan to step that far in. Keisha had only walked a few steps past the curtain, just enough to see the chandelier up close and feel the music in her chest instead of just her ears. But in a place that clean, every step you took made a statement. And all of a sudden, they saw. Not with grins, not with gentleness, with eyes. The kind that looks. The sort that cut. A woman in a navy dress gazed at her and then quickly looked away, pulling her handbag closer as if Keisha might take it. A girl in her teens, no older than 16, nudged her pal and smirked while talking behind her champagne flute. 2 older men near the bar looked at each other, and one of them laughed. "Looks like someone's kid ran away from the kitchen." The words weren't very loud, but they did land. Keisha felt them like static in her chest, sharp, unseen, and electrifying. She gazed at herself. The black outfit was nice since her mom had pressed it that morning. The red apron was not dirty, but it didn't fit in this room. She didn't either. Not in their minds. They didn't think of her as a little girl. She didn't dance. She wasn't a visitor. She was a sign that someone had messed up behind the scenes, that the wall between them and the help had broken, even if only for a short time. There was a laugh behind her. Not fun, mean, the kind of chuckle that never includes you. "Check her out, like a Disney extra who got lost on the wrong set," someone said near the punch bowl. Another speaker said, "I bet her mom is freaking out right now." And then someone snorted. Keisha bit her lip. She wanted to get smaller, to disappear into the carpet, to blend in with the wallpaper. But there was something little and tenacious inside her that kept her immobile. People had laughed at her before, in school, in the bus, even at the store. But it always hurt more when the place was this nice. She took a step back, almost turning around, and that's when she noticed him, Vexley Nolan, standing alone at the stairs, with space around them like the air around a flame. No one would go near him, but he was keeping an eye on her. Not like the rest, not with judgment, just looking. And somehow, in that cold, crowded room, that gaze made me feel warmer than all the chandeliers put together. Nolan Vexley did not come early. He never did. He was always the last one to arrive, and the last one to leave, and he never remained longer than he had to. People said it was because he had a lot to do. Men with power usually had something more important to do. But the truth was more straightforward. He couldn't stand these nights. He disliked the small talk, the false laughs, and the way people shook his hand like they owed him something. He despised how the room changed when he walked in, as if money deserved that kind of respect. But he came every year, just for one reason. His daughter had a great time at this gala. She had danced here before, barefoot and in a pink dress that was too big for her. She had spun circles under the chandeliers. Nolan kept that recollection in his heart like a gentle bruise that no one else could see. It has been 10 years since she died. Nolan came, then, by itself, not talking. He was wearing a black suit that fit his attitude. At 8:06 p.m., he walked through the double doors, nodded graciously to the mayor, and ignored the photographer who was pretending not to be waiting for him. His tie was just right. He wore golden cufflinks, but his eyes looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. People moved out of the way as he walked in, not out of politeness, but out of respect. He was very wealthy. People admired the kind from afar but didn't question them. Some people tried to talk. "Mr. Vexley, I was wondering if, can I just say, your speech at, you look good, sir." He nodded in response, half smiles, a few soft thank yous. But he was thinking about something else, until he saw her. A kid, not dressed right for this room and not acting like anyone else, just stood there, frozen in a sea of dresses and shiny shoes. There was something about the way she stood, her eyes. She looked like she didn't belong, but she stood tall anyhow. He got it. Like déjà vu, but with anguish. She looked a lot like his daughter did the last time she danced here. His chest felt tight. He blinked, but the picture stayed there. Nolan moved away from the crowd and closer to the stairs, where he could see her from a distance. He didn't say anything. He stayed still, but he also didn't look away. And for the first time in 10 years, he felt something. Not pity, not sad, acknowledgement, like something that had been gone for a long time had come back, just for a little while. And it was crimson. In a flash, it happened. Keisha had turned to leave, to get away before the whispers could get even tighter around her neck. But her feet, which were little, frightened, and not used to polished marble, went faster than her mind. Someone had put a serving plate on the floor behind the curtain, and the heel of her shoe hit it. And all of a sudden, the tray flew away, the glass turned, and the champagne, which was still cold and boiling, splashed all over a black suit. The clock stopped. This time, the room didn't gasp. It made a noise. Not out loud, but inside everyone had the same reaction to seeing someone else's problems. Keisha stopped moving, eyes wide open, covering her mouth with her hands. There was only one drop on her cheek, and it wasn't champagne. It was terror. Fear that runs deep in the soul. She didn't know who she had poured it on. Not yet. She only knew she had broken something valuable. The man took a step back cautiously. He looked down at his wet lapel. After that, he raised his head. Keisha looked Nolan Vexley in the eye. She couldn't breathe. She thought people would be angry. A harsh phrase. Maybe someone even grabbed her by the shoulder and pulled her away. She got ready for it. But none of that happened. He just blinked once, though. Again. Like trying to get rid of a recollection of a vision. His eyes softened, not out of pity, but because he knew who he was. He wasn't looking at a mistake. He was staring at something that looked familiar. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but not cruel. Keisha nodded quickly, too terrified to say anything. "I'm sorry," she said in a low voice. "I didn't mean to." He said, "It's okay." Before she could finish, she looked down again. Her apron was wet. The tray was still on the ground. She went down hurriedly to get it, her hands shaking. Nolan went down and grabbed up the glass before she could. He did it faster than she thought he would. He smiled slightly and remarked, "You dropped this," as he handed it back. Something unusual happened between them at that moment. Not pity, not giving, but something that feels good. Something without words. A compassionate act that didn't feel like a show. It seemed genuine. People were looking. Whispers were rising again. But for that moment, behind the noise, the embarrassment, and the sparkling brightness of a world she didn't belong to, Keisha felt like she was being watched. Not as the help, not as an issue, as a human. And for the first time in 10 years, Nolan felt like a person again. Not strong, not rich, just here. And neither of them would ever be the same again. She didn't mean to say it. Keisha had planned to go away, go back into the hallway. She could hide behind the kitchen doors and be invisible again, where things made sense. But something had changed in her, a minor thing that can't be missed. The instant Nolan Vexley handed her that glass, the moment he looked at her like she mattered, it did something. It reminded her that she was still strong, And sometimes, that's all it takes. So she went back. The party was in full flow now. The music got louder. Laughter rose high. The auctioneer had entered the stage and was pointing to paintings and vacation packages that no one in her world could possibly afford. Keisha moved forward, through the drapes. Beyond the velvet rope, beyond the border her mother had drawn with shaky hands and muttered rules. And then, she walked across the floor of the ballroom. Little feet, a lot of room. Every click of the heel sounded like thunder. One by one, heads turned slowly, not sure what to do. I wonder. Nolan was the first to see her. He was now sitting 2 rows back from the stage, holding glass, still by myself. She came to a stop in front of him. She took a long breath that made her chest shake, and in the center of that sparkling, empty room, surrounded by pearls and power suits, she said something. "Will you dance with me, mister?" The words weren't very loud, but they didn't have to be. They cut through the jazz, through the noise, because she thought she didn't have a voice in this place. There was a quiet like snow. A person coughed. There was a clink of a fork, and then the whispers started. Is this some kind of play? Who is she, anyway? She shouldn't be in here. Denise dropped the tray she was still carrying near the back wall. The glass broke. Also, her heart. Keisha didn't move. She felt like she had to run, but she didn't. Because this time, she wasn't trying to fit in. She wanted others to notice her. Nolan's grip on his glass got tighter. He looked at her closely and noticed more than just a girl. He saw rebellion cloaked in innocence. Bravery in an apron. The room was quiet while he thought. But really, it was the question that had already changed everything. It began as a whisper. A soft laugh near the wine table. A person in pearls made a cough seem like a scoff. Then, as if the room had silently given permission to make fun, the laughing spread. First casually, then sharply. Is she serious? You've got to be kidding me. Did the people in the kitchen lose a bet or something? Someone took out their phone, which was already recording. Not to record a brave moment, but to feed an algorithm and make Keisha look silly. She could feel it all. It's not just the sound. It's the weight of it. The way that laughter may push someone away without touching them. Keisha's gaze moved quickly over the ballroom. The chandeliers weren't shining anymore. They looked at one another angrily. Faces turned into a wall of condemnation, and mouths twisted into the same smirk. People who weren't laughing weren't helping either. They just stood there and watched, safe in their quiet. A man in a velvet blazer turned to his date and stated, "If I wanted to see a charity case, I'd go to a soup kitchen." Others could hear him. She laughed behind her glass. Keisha's hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Her throat hurt. Her legs implored her to turn around and go, to find a dark place where no one knew her name. But she didn't, even though her heart was pounding like a drum, even though her cheeks were heated and her legs were shaking. Denise could see everything from the other side of the room. She couldn't breathe. She wanted to scream and run to her kid to protect her from the evil she knew all too well, but she couldn't get up. Not yet. Not while everyone in the room held their breath. Keisha stood stationary in the middle of that storm. Her lashes were wet with tears, but her chin didn't droop. Her voice didn't break. She stayed put. Not for applause, not for being nice. Just one answer. Nolan didn't move. Not a single twitch, not a blink. And then, he got up. Very tall. Stay calm, not bothered. The laughs died off. Phones went down. The room moved. Nolan Vexley didn't rise for anyone. Not politicians, not the royal family, not investors. But now he was standing up for a small girl with a red apron. He reached out, and without saying a word, he gave her his hand. Everyone in the room held their breath. The jazz band even seemed to pause, not sure if they should play or just watch what was about to happen. Keisha blinked at him. Billionaire Nolan Vexley, not able to be touched. The man who had faced CEOs, stock market disasters, and world news was now looking at her as if she were the only person in the world. His hand was outstretched, steady, not for show, not for sympathy, just real. She thought about it. Not because I'm scared. But no one had ever given her anything like this before. Then, little by little, she put her hand in his. It was hot, strong. Her fingers barely fit around his palm. But they did. Not quite, but really. The room, still shocked, opened up as they walked to the center of the ballroom. The sole sound was their footsteps, delicate taps on marble that echoed louder than any symphony ever could. And then, music. The band started to play even though they weren't sure why. A sluggish dance, stylish, outdated. The kind of music that went with old black and white movies and fairy tales. Nolan bent down a little. Keisha did a curtsy like she had seen in movies, and then they danced. It wasn't finished. It wasn't great. She missed the beat more than once because her feet were too small. But it didn't matter. They moved like they had known one another for a long time. A man who hadn't danced in more than 10 years. A girl who had only ever danced by herself in a hallway. All together. In the brightness of gold. In front of an audience that had once laughed, but couldn't speak anymore. Some people watched in awe. Others were ashamed. A handful of them cried. They knew deep down that they weren't seeing a dance. They were seeing a break. Of walls. Of hopes. Of all the things this chamber was meant to keep safe. Denise stood still at the back, hands over her mouth and eyes wide open in shock. But not fear this time. Not mad. Hope. The music got louder, and Nolan twisted Keisha around slowly. She laughed once, and the sound was louder than any chandelier. He smiled, and it didn't look like he was rehearsing or holding back, the sort that came from a place that was hidden. And for a time, the room didn't matter anymore. The looks, the whispering, the borders that separate them from us. Everything went away. As the music slowed down, Nolan crouched down a little and bowed his head toward Keisha like a knight would to a queen. She smiled, sheer happiness, just magic. After that, he stood, held her hand, and looked at the crowd. Nobody moved, because they all knew, whether they wanted to or not, they had just seen something sacred. Not a dance, a statement. The applause didn't come right away. The room kept quiet even after the music stopped. After Keisha moved back and Nolan let go of her hand gently. Not because they were embarrassed, but because they respected it. Like they realized the rules had changed and didn't want to say anything too quickly. Nolan looked at the stage. He didn't say he needed a microphone. One was already there, next to the podium where only the host of the event was supposed to stand. He moved toward it gently, like someone would when they were going to something holy. Then he spoke in a calm yet clear voice. He said, "You all just saw a moment. A real one. Not selected, not planned out, not part of any schedule or press release. Some people moved around in their seats uncomfortably. Some people leaned in." He pointed at Keisha and remarked, "This little girl just did something that most of us have forgotten how to do. She asked for something, without thinking the response would be yes. She asked without feeling like she had to. Without ego. She asked with her heart." Keisha was off to the side, not knowing if she should smile, cry, or do both. Nolan went on. "She made me think of someone I used to know. Someone I think about every day." There was silence again. "My daughter danced in this ballroom 10 years ago. The same music, same lights. She wore a pink dress that kept falling off her shoulder." His voice broke, but he didn't stop. "She's not here anymore. But tonight I thought about how she saw the world, with hope, with kindness." He turned all the way to Keisha. "And you brought that back." Then, to the room. "I have something to say." More murmurs started. A couple phones rang. People were ready for another shock. "I've set up a new scholarship. My daughter will be the name of the fund. It will be called the Grace Fund." There was a quiet gasp from the back of the room. "It will pay for all of the tuition for young girls of color who want to study the arts, like dance, music, and storytelling. Anything that helps them say what the world too frequently tries to stop them from saying." He looked down for a second, and then said, "And the first person to get it is Keisha." The quiet was broken. A few people clapped. A few people stood. Some didn't know what to do, but none of them laughed. Denise fell to her knees behind the stage, crying in waves. Not because they were shocked, but for a deeper reason. Relief. Pride. Love. Nolan left the stage. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't wait for people to say, "Well done." He just walked back to Keisha, bent down a little, and spoke in a low voice. "Thanks for reminding me of who I used to be." Before Nolan had left the building, the video was online. It began as a shaky video from a phone, only a couple seconds long. A billionaire in a black suit, and a small black girl in an apron are spinning together in the light of gold. No text, no context, but the internet didn't need a lot. It was shared again in a few minutes, first on Instagram stories, then on Twitter, and finally on TikTok. It was all over the place by dawn. Number the dance. Little Keisha. Number hidden grace. Number black story. The tags varied, but the message stayed the same. The world had watched something magnificent happen. People cried. Some people argued. News anchors tried to explain it, put it in context, and break it down like it was just another trending story. But what about most people? They just kept watching it, over and over. The way Nolan gazed at her, how she didn't blink, how the room, which was used to rules and roles, remained still as two people showed it what grace looked like. Keisha became a symbol in a single day. Not because she wanted to, not because she wanted it, but her bravery had broken open something that the world had attempted to keep shut. People composed essays. This kid didn't just ask for a dance. She wanted to be seen. This moment showed how kindness can change things in a place where people are separated. Why did it take a billionaire for the world to notice? There were also some who didn't like it. Some people said it was fake, that Nolan did it for publicity. Some people blamed the gala. This is what happens when you let staff go. But there were more voices of parents, professors, artists, and strangers who recognized in Keisha what they once felt in themselves. Optimism that hadn't yet been shattered. Within hours, fan art started to show up. One drawing shows Keisha with wings formed of music notes. Another portrayed her in the middle of a spin, with stars falling from her shoes. And what about Nolan? He sent out a short letter. A few paragraphs are on the Vexley Foundation website. It said, "I didn't plan for any of this to happen. I didn't want to dance. I didn't plan to talk, but I'm pleased I did. A youngster can teach us that stillness is not calm, and that loudness is not courage." Keisha didn't do anything wrong. She told us why we built the space in the first place. The video got more than 32 million views by the end of the week. But Keisha didn't care about the stats. She didn't want to be famous. She didn't want it. She only wanted to dance. And she did. Not simply for a rich person, but for a world that finally knew how to feel. At the end of the day, the dance didn't change anything. It was the answer. The man who the world felt had no warmth left said yes in a simple, quiet way, while the girl who the world tried not to see asked in a bold, shaky way. That night at the Ellington Hotel had nothing to do with money, celebrity, or power. It was about what occurs when someone has the courage to think they belong, even in the most unexpected place. Keisha didn't get into the room. She stepped in with her head held high. She didn't ask for attention. She offered a link. She didn't talk loudly. She asked in a soft voice, and in doing so, she reminded us of something most of us forget as we grow up. That bravery doesn't always make noise. It can be quiet at times. Sometimes, it wears a crimson apron. A child's voice sometimes asks, "Will you dance with me?" In a room full of people who have been taught not to listen, we spend a lot of time waiting for the perfect time, the right look, the right status, or the right approval to move forward, speak up, and take up space. But the truth is that most of the folks who encourage us to wait are just scared that we'll remind them that they don't know how to feel. So, here is what you should learn. Don't ever underestimate how much being nice can change things. Don't ever doubt how strong you have to be to ask for what you deserve. And never, ever allow the world to tell you how much you're worth. That night, Keisha didn't transform the world, but she made the room different. And that's how change starts sometimes. At Hidden Worth, we think tales like this are important not because they are rare, but because they are all around us, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to see me, waiting for someone to tell me. So if this story touched you in any way, don't just scroll past. Let others know about it. Talk about it. Let someone know they are important. And most importantly, be the person who says yes when everyone else advises you to be quiet. Because someone is waiting to be seen, someplace. They might be wearing ballerina shoes. They might be carrying a tray. Maybe they're you. And if you ever find yourself alone in a room that urges you to be quiet, we hope you don't forget Keisha and have the guts to ask.